Our government constantly boasts of their handling of our taxes as wise and above reproach. But we're all too familiar with the cases of extreme incompetence, abuse, and even sometimes corruption. You know those things called boondoggles? When they collect about $250 billion a year in taxes and spend about $250 billion a year, you have to know that financial controls are going to miss their mark once in a while. Maybe it's less depressing to just turn away and ignore the problem, but that's never going to fix that problem at Ottawa's Department of Spending. For instance, let's look at those various grants, handouts, subsidies, and foundations that serve as taxpayer-funded philanthropy. Hundreds of millions of dollars spent under the pretense of employment creation, cultural protection, sports, academic research, and so on. My favorite example of flushing taxpayers' money down the loo for nebulous benefits is the nefarious HRDC grant program from several years ago. That program may no longer exist in name, but the billions of dollars we supposedly saved in its cancellation haven't come back to us in tax benefits, have they? It's still being spent out there somewhere. Worse, most of the politicians and bureaucrats who concocted and administered the scheme and the interest groups who benefited from the entitlements are still pretty much out there too. And if you think about it, we really are still paying for it. So I've decided that the best way to awaken my fellow Canadians to the waste is to personalize the costs of these giveaways. I think it'd be very useful to understand the impact on us personally. It's too easy to go numb when the phrase millions of dollars for thousands of grants is thrown at us. To accomplish this worthy objective, I've devised the Adopt a Grant program. That is, take your individual tax payments for any year or years and compare them to a grant handed out by the government. Pretend to take on the responsibility to nurture and manage that grant all by yourself and figure out what it took and what you got for your money. Think about it carefully. Knowing that 1 cent of your taxes went to each of thousands of grants is not very inspirational. But it most certainly is if you were to imagine that 100% of your taxes for, say, the last 5 years went to one extremely worthwhile project or study. I guarantee you that you'll feel closer to democracy and in greater partnership with your elected government after you perform this exercise. So, adopt that grant. I have selected my adopted grant, and I know you're interested in hearing what it is. For me, it has to be the $50,000 stripper study done by that professor out in British Columbia. Really, I insist. The stripper study grant is my adopt-a grant. I've adopted it. It has been adopted by me. I want that one. No, it's mine, not yours. I estimate it took me hard labor for 8 years to pay for that single grant, so get your own. You see, this was not just any stripper study. Evidently, the objective was not to find out why such sorry folks worked in such a sorry profession. This might have given pause to others considering it, or to help experts figure out some causes or remedies. No, instead, as I understand it, the study was simply an analysis of the numbers of strippers, their history, practices, and techniques. I said, as I understand it, because although it is my adopted grant, and I paid for it, I've not received a copy of the finished study for perusal. I don't know if it was even ever made public. I guess I just have to trust that it was ever written. Come to think of it, if you were to adopt one of those unfortunate kids in the third world through World Vision or the like, you'd get progress reports and a picture of the smiling child once in a while. It's just that I sure would like to know that my adopted grant is having a good life or is doing some good for the world. So I encourage all, far and wide, to adopt a grant. Or if you make lots of money and pay lots of taxes, adopt a whole program. There's some lonely orphan grant out there that needs a sponsor or guardian. It's a personal, powerful expression of our democratic right. And it'll be something to remember the next time and every time politicians come knocking at your door looking for your vote.